Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Chad Bernstein, who is the founder of Guitars Over Guns. Chad, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thanks for having me, Devin. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we appreciate the time you're taking, and you're doing some amazing things with young people, and we're just thrilled to sort of explore those with you. You were recognized as a CNN hero not long ago, and for the great work that you're doing, and we're excited to be able to kind of pick your brain a little bit to get a few insights from you about how to work with young people.
Sure.
You offered me in advance three particular tips. The first tip you gave us was to sort of be the adult in the life of a child. Tell us why you think that's so important.
Not necessarily any adult. I think the important thing is that a young person has somebody that they can rely on that not only helps hold them accountable, but is also just there without just to serve some of the things that they're going through and to offer advice. Oftentimes with our kids, they look at older people as kind of infallible beings, and it's really interesting when you break down those walls and discuss with them some of the issues that you've been through and how you're very much not a perfect person who's been through many of the same issues or struggles that they have, just how meaningful that can be to hear as a young.
So how did you come to see this? How have you seen that affected in a child's life, in a young person's life? I mean, why do you believe that's so important today?
Well, to answer your first question, how we came to see this, the initial experience that we had that really launched this entire concept, I was playing with a band called Swenelo in Miami, and we had a friend that was teaching at a juvenile detention center. On her request, just to talk to the kids about music as an alternative to whatever may have gotten them there in the first place. And as we showed up and checked our instruments through the x-ray machine and were wanded in the metal detector, they told us that we wouldn't be able to bring all the instruments into the juvenile detention center because they could be used as a weapon against us. So we were a bit alarmed and taken aback, but we got in there, got in front of the kids and started speaking to them about and their cold reaction until we started playing. Kids that were aged, and it was definitely a shift in the energy in the room. And then we had a kid yell out from the back of the room, making a song out of what he yelled, and they were blown away that we would be able to make something on the spot like that. And it was at that point that we realized the need of it to learn. And so it was that inquisitive spirit from them that really, was the first ball to be pushed down the hill, and it's been rolling ever since. But the important thing to us was finding that key to unlock the door to two very seemingly different groups of people are definitely able to connect, especially through a medium like music, which connects all of us. So that was the first initial experience that we were able to kind of get a foot in the door and start talking to these kids in a way that interested them from our perspective. And then when we really started to see a change, probably the end of the first year for sure, but the second year that we had a little bit of experience under our belt, we knew that we wanted the program to feel a certain, that they could depend on us being there, and that they could depend on us being non-judgmental of whatever they brought to the table. But we had some kids that started sharing some things that they were going through, particularly in that second year, kids that had been there for a year already, and we'd formed a bit of a relationship, and they really paved the way for the rest of the kids, because those kids were the first ones to say, hey, I'm going through this. And then you had a bunch of other kids that said, oh my God, I've been through that too. So whether that's a loss of a family member, many of our kids came over from Haiti is a perfect example. A lot of them were sent over by their parents or relatives to have a better life, for a better education. But that leaves them with issues that they're struggling with here. You know, they don't have necessarily their immediate family around, or they're living with multiple families in a house. And hearing those kids kind of just bring those things up to vent, not even to get answers. And I think that's a really important thing. But hearing them bring these things to the table and say, struggling with, and that reminds me, I'm going through that as well, and providing that open platform for us to really discuss the things that are the larger factors contributing to whatever success or lack of success they're experiencing was a really big deal for us.
Well, you suggest there are two key tips or principles for building trust with young people. What are they?
You definitely have to show up. Consistency is key, and there's no replacement for investing into that relationship. I think that one of the things that's really important is to understand that you can't just show up and say, hey, you can trust me, and expect that a kid's going to just surrender to that, because in a lot of situations in their lives, especially with adults, and especially in these neighborhoods, these kids have people walking in and out of their life at given times. You know, somebody goes out for whatever they say they're going out for and just doesn't come back. And many of our kids have shared that experience with us. Many of our, and it's a very difficult situation. So that trust is earned, and it's something that you need to commit to, and you need to understand that they're going to test that. And for many of our kids, they've been through it enough times that they know what buttons to push to speed up the process of exit if it's going to happen. And our role is really to let them know it's not going to happen. And no matter what you say, no matter which finger you stick up in the air at me, I'm coming back next week, and we're going to start from scratch and just clear the slate, and we're going to keep moving forward. And I think that time and consistency is really the key to building a fruitful relationship.
There must be a story of at least one young person that helped you to understand how important this was.
Without a doubt. There's a lot of our students, and some of them are a little bit more rewarding than others in terms of the story. Some of the stories are a lot more. His name was Devin, and kind of float around from instrument to instrument, and we didn't really think he was into the program. And he would come, and kids thought he was funny, and he would crack jokes, and it was a constant struggle with him to get him to just sit down for the first 10 minutes of class. It was always the challenge. Then he would jump from instrument to instrument. He was talented, but he was a big kid. He was kind of a popular kid, but extremely insecure, we came to find out. And there were several times during the year where we had to say, Joshua, it's up to you whether you're here or not, but these are the things we expect from you if you're going to be in this room, and we can't divert the attention of everyone in the class to appease your jokes here. Let's keep it positive and move forward. And if you choose not to do that, you're choosing not to be here. And I think 5-6 times during the year we had to kick him out of the class, and we don't do that. I mean, we really try to create an environment where people can express many forms that are playing or disarming other kids from being able to do what they came in to do. It's an issue. And so we don't close the door permanently, but even had that conversation several times about what do we do? Do we continue to let this kid show up and wreak havoc on the program? So he's in and out, and he's in and out, and he finally comes and sticks around and has some good experiences, and then he's out again, and we don't really know why. And it turns out that he was dealing with some really significant things outside of school, family life, personal life things. And clearly the result of that idea failed earlier. He had made several of our mentors cry to the point where we said, all right, do we kick him out of the program? And we didn't. And he up a little bit and he coming in sessions. And in those last couple sessions, we were getting ready for performances, and he just kind of hung out, and he didn't perform because he wasn't prepared, because he hadn't been showing up. And attendance is crucial for us, and it's something we expect from the kids, and it's something that they need to be at the sessions in order to perform. So we were surprised that he showed up even if he wasn't going to perform. At the end of the year, we had an award ceremony, and we gave everyone a certificate of completion of the program. Joshua came and
Chad, I apologize. We're dealing with a little bit of a buffering issue and trying to deal with that. We've muted you. I think you're unmuted now.
okay.
But, what I'm going to ask you to do, Chad, and I apologize for this, but the buffering problem is so bad, I'm going to ask you to turn off your camera. And you do this by simply hovering your mouse over my face. You'll see some icons pop up above my head. And one of those looks like a camera. You just click that and it'll go off. And then just make sure that you don't also mute yourself so we can hear you. If you'd go ahead and just check your mic there for me.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can also see you, which is the problem. I'm hoping that'll do it. Can you hear me? Try your mic again. Yeah, we can't hear you when you don't see it. Okay, so turn it back on, and we'll try to be patient with the buffering. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I interrupted you, Chad. Finish your thought, and then we will. I'll pick up with the next question.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
better.
Now. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, Joshua shows up to the very last awards ceremony and asked to say something, and a bit caught off guard and a little bit worried about what he was going to say since he'd been such a handful all year. And he got up and very eloquently, for not giving up on me, thank you for allowing me to come and continue and finish the program and graduate from Guitars Over Guns. I know that I didn't make it easy on you, and I'm sorry. And I just want to let you know how appreciative I am that you allowed me to continue to be a part of this, because I know I didn't deserve it. And it was possibly one of the greatest gestures we've ever experienced in the program, from a kid that just felt, that we felt could not have cared less. And the important thing for us to realize in that moment was that it's not our job to place judgment on whether or not these kids care. And that's not something that's our decision to make. And this is a point that a teacher by the name of John O'Deleon said the other day in one of our staff meetings. It's not our job. The worst and most damaging thing we can do is decide for a kid if he cares or not. And I think so much of what happens with these kids and with the way we're starting to structure education, we're making these judgments and we're making these decisions about whether or not these kids care, and it's really not our place to do that. And it's really rewarding when you see a kid turn around and say something like that and express it when you know they don't have to, and you know that well, you certainly don't know that it's coming. I'll say that.
No, fantastic. Well, Chad, you also point out the importance, and I think it's a related point to the last one, that you need to be committed. Why do you think that's so important?
Without the commitment, you really have nothing. We started actually paying our mentors a small stipend that accrues over at the end of the year, but really more importantly, we needed to incentivize this to the point where professional musicians and people that are artists and working in the community are constantly getting calls for recording sessions or gallery openings or commissions or whatever. And we needed to make this something that artists and creative people could commit to. And the reason that it's so important is that you're constantly breaking an expectation that a kid has that you're not going to show up, or that they may not be worth you showing up, which is what Joshua taught us. And we're there to lead by action, and there's no way to do that without that commitment.
Chad, I think these are really vitally important principles for helping any of us deal with and help young people. How did you take us back in time? How did you really get started? What drew you to this?
Just to think long before that, as a kid, my dad was working in the investment world, and particularly in developing third world countries. And one of the things that I always took from him was an understanding of the world and the conflict that was happening in the world, without really, as a kid, being able to understand why that was happening. And at the same time that I was hearing about and experiencing these conflicts that were happening in the world across religions, across races, across political boundaries, I was heavily involved in music. And music was something that I always turned to individually and had great powers for me, just dealing with whatever typical kids deal with that's tough through childhood and adolescence and your own coming of age process. But when I had an experience to play in every edition, prestigious kind of position in an all-state band where they take kids and handpick them from the district and put them together for a concert where you spend all day rehearsing and perform at the end of the day with these kids you've never met. Being in that situation and having music placed in front of me before ever really shaking the hand of the kid next to me, and being told, having the piece counted off and being told to play, made me realize that music connected people that were, very different and transcended whatever boundaries were there between us. At that point, I kind of had this goal in mind to create some kind of a global orchestra or some kind of musical experience that brought kids together from different parts of the world that were at conflict, and put music in front of them, or have music be the central piece that they were communicating through, and have that be showcased to these heads of the state or heads of countries that were at war with one another. And it was kind of a pipe dream until I came to Miami and started playing in this band Swenelo, the one that did the performance at the Juvenile Detention Center. And when I was playing in Swenelo represented at the time that I started there, Puerto Rico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Venezuela, Colombia, and France. And they were, 7 or 8 members from one of these countries, or had roots in these countries. And the music that we made was this incredible combination of all those things. And by bringing everyone's different influence to the table, it created this really unique music. And somewhere in my mind, I said, I'm living out this dream that I had as a kid. And I started discussing that with my dad, and he was the one that said, well, why don't you formalize that into some kind of vehicle that you can take this ad hoc mentoring that you guys are doing in the juvenile detention centers and in these classrooms, and really have a measurable impact on a specific group of kids. It might be a way that we can build something that fosters the unique potential that musicians have to have a social impact. And that was kind of where the concept started. And then it took a couple years of refinement and research and trying to determine the best model for that, nonprofit or for-profit, through partnerships or independently. And that's really where it all came from.
Well, I mean, it's a remarkable story. And of course, you've had tremendous impact on some youth. You've really become a role model, obviously. As a CNN hero, you're really highly regarded in the broader community and certainly by the youth that you work with. Who do you look up to? Who inspires you?
Well, I have to say that I'm incredibly inspired by the people that I'm surrounded with on a regular basis. The musicians and the mentors that we have in the program constantly remind me how important the work we're doing is. And not only that, but how much it resonates with other artistic people. I think at the core level, music, everyone loves music. I've never met anyone that doesn't love some form of music. And so that side of it is there, but the social impact side and really being able to be creative in that social entrepreneurship space is something that I'm constantly inspired by. People like Theaster Gates. Theaster Gates is a great example of somebody that is from the south side of Chicago. He started as a potter, an artist, and through his journey really started to link together and use pottery as a metaphor for creating drastic social change, and started conceptualizing bringing together the elements of society like government assistance and low-income housing and the arts and community and small town versus large city community dynamics, the same way that he was the elements in clay, and how those can both be shaped to form something unique and beautiful, and how those things can really push us to think about form and what's possible and be a model for us to aspire to. And his path and his growth in what he's done in terms of turning abandoned buildings in very disparate and desolate areas of the community into artistic hubs, and having a finger on the pulse of a community is really inspiring to me. And then also I think the people that, artists that really put the music first and connect to their passion in a way that they put it before themselves. Prince is actually a huge inspiration to me. I just saw an interview, obviously since he just passed away, we have all these things surfacing about him, and he was really one of the most creative and amazing geniuses that the music world has ever seen, but he put his music first on so many levels. I remember Oprah asking him a question, people think, what do you think people think of you? And he said, well, I would imagine that people think that I'm very strange or weird, or they don't understand me and think that I'm some kind of freak. And she said, well, what would you like people to know about you instead? And all he said was the music. That it was really the thing that he wanted to define him more than anything, because all the rest of that didn't matter. And to have that kind of vision and that kind of confidence and that dedication to the art form is something that I aspire to.
Chad, what do you hope will define you in the end?
Oh, that's a good question. Hopefully the music, but also hopefully that we've built something that truly outlasts all of us. I believe that music and the arts are an absolutely essential part of our life, both on an individual level and on a society and community level. I believe the arts to connect us in really unique ways. There's nothing cooler than looking out when you're performing and seeing a crowd full of the most diverse people that would not normally be standing next to each other or dancing next to each other or looking at a piece of art next to each other. I think we need to find anchors like that in our lives and in our communities that we can all kind of surrender to and forget about the differences between us, especially when you look at what's going on now in our world and in our country and in our election season. But I think what I would like to be remembered as or defined by would be a dedication towards that concept of bringing people together through these universal mediums.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Chad, before you go, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, tell us how people can learn more about Guitars Over Guns and connect with you.
Yes, thank you. Please follow us on our social media at Guitars Over Guns on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can follow me personally at Chad Bernstein on Twitter and Facebook, and CB Music on Instagram. Our website is guitarsoverguns.org, and there you can find a bunch of information about what we're doing, where it all started, what it came from, the people that are involved in the organization, how you can get involved. Obviously, there are tons of needs in an organization like ours for donations of instruments, as well as monetary donations. But you can also volunteer your time. What we're trying to create is not a program; it's a movement, and it's a system of beliefs that if we start to empower these kids and give them a voice, then they will become the leaders that we believe they can be. And for the most part, our kids have been through so much in their short lives already that they have the capacity to really blow us away. So follow us at Guitars Over Guns. Enjoy the ride.
Fantastic. Well, Chad, thank you very much for being with us today. We wish you every success in the great work you're doing with those young people.
Thank you so much, Devin. I appreciate you having me on the show.
All right. Let's do some good.